Okay, hello, and welcome back to HelloStrengthSeniors Mobility, or welcome if it's your first time. All that you need is really some space, a yoga mat potentially for a little bit of cushion, maybe some water and a towel nearby. But we'll get started today, starting your morning potentially off with a little bit of movement and getting the blood flowing. We're going to do a standing circuit first, 2 standing circuits, then move on to the floor. And so we're going to start with some arm circles. I'll show you these from the side. We're first going to go backward. And so with these, like all our exercises, you don't want to push beyond where your current mobility is. You just want to go within what's comfortable, but feels like maybe a little bit of a stretch at first. So make sure you're reaching up and then think about going back, not out to the side. And then we're going to reverse and go back to front. So obviously working mobility at the shoulder with these. Make sure that your hands are also staying straight, just nice within that line of the body. As you go around, you may notice one arm is able to move a little bit differently than the other. That's totally okay. Just nice smooth circles. And we'll do one more. And then move into our second one, which is a little bit of a mix of some mobility and a little bit of coordination. We're going to do a hip hinge with a heels elevated position. So you're just going to engage a little bit of your balance. So you're going to just have your heels barely off the ground, feet hip distance apart. And then I'm going to reach my hips back. If you're familiar with the Romanian deadlift, it's that movement. And then at the top, try to keep the heels lifted. If they need to come down, that's okay. But you're reaching the hips back. The knees do bend when you're at the bottom, but they don't push forward. That's what keeps it different from a squat. We're reaching the hips back. My back is staying flat. If you need to have your heels down, that's totally okay. If you want to work a little bit of that proprioception and balance, just have those heels barely off the ground. And so ideally, we want to feel a little stretch in the hamstring in the back of the leg when we're doing this, especially on the way down. Should feel those muscles of the foot moving to balance and keep you in that heels lifted position. Back stays nice and flat. Lifting those heels if you can. One more. Excellent. And then going into our third one in this circuit that we'll repeat 2 times total, some Frankensteins. So hands are forward. And then you're just going to raise one leg and then the other, keeping it straight-ish. You'll notice I have a little bend in my knee because we're not entirely going for hamstring flexibility here, but we're going for hip mobility and a little bit of core strength and hip flexor strength for lifting each leg. And so try not to shift too much side to side as you lift. It's okay if your leg doesn't get very far up. Just lifting as high as is comfortable for now. And you might notice the second time around, you're able to lift a little bit higher. We'll do one more. And take a breath, and then we're going to run through this circuit one more time, starting with those arm circles. And make sure that you keep just a little bit of tightness in your core, that you're not slipping into that arched lower back. As we start with going from forward to back, nice smooth circles, not too fast. Make sure you're also not holding any tension in your neck. As you do these, try to keep that relaxed. Going around. Nice and smooth at that shoulder joint. And then reverse, going back to front. And again, totally normal if you notice that your arms look a little different one side to the other. That's just because no one is even, and it's good to let each side work independently, like we are now, going around nice and smooth. One more time. And then we'll go back into those hip hinges. Again, my heels are going to be just slightly off the ground. And then I'm going to push the hips back with that flat back, potentially keeping those heels lifted at the top. Little hip hinge. Back stays flat. Try not to round your shoulders forwards. It's okay if this one feels a little bit challenging to maintain that position. You can drop the heels down onto the floor if you get tired. One last little detail, try to make sure your head isn't craned upwards. You'll notice I'm kind of looking at the ground and then at where the wall meets the floor, just to keep a nice neutral neck, neutral spine. Reaching those hips back and forward one more time. Excellent. And then that third one, our Frankensteins, lifting one leg and then the other. Doesn't matter if you point or flex your toe. Really just focusing on that core and your hip, limiting too much movement side to side. And hopefully with these exercises already, you're feeling a little bit more warmed up than when you first started. And that'll make everything continue to feel better as the body gets a little bit loosened up. Okay, we'll do one more on each side. Perfect. Okay, so then we're going back to upper body with a field goal rotation press. This one is really, again, for the shoulders. I'm going to stand with my feet almost together, again, engaging that core a little bit, and starting with my hands out, even with the body, 90 degrees. I'm going to rotate up and then press overhead, then come back to 90 degrees and back down. So you can follow along if that's helpful. Rotate, press, back to field goal, rotate, field goal, press, field goal, and rotate. So this one, obviously, that internal as we go down, external rotation as we go up at the shoulder. A really nice one for that shoulder joint there. And taking your time with this one so you feel that rotation in the joint. I'm going to do one more of these. Wonderful. Then going into our second one, this one a little bit more challenging for hip mobility. We're going to do standing hip circles. It's helpful if you have a little something to hold on to. We're going to start with this knee raised forward and then bring it out to the side, backward. Notice my foot is still up, and then end in this bent knee position with knees together. Then from here, I'm going to reverse it backward, out to the side to where you started. So essentially I'm drawing a big circle with my knee and then going backwards to the top. If you can, stay upright for this one at the torso. That'll just keep all the mobility at the hip. So again, knee comes out, stays up, comes down, backwards, side. Wonderful. And we'll try that on the other side. You might notice one side feels a lot easier than the other. That's totally okay. Back, side, front, side, back, and down. Good. Might feel that glute engaging. That's what's helping work this leg through that range of motion. Keeping that torso nice and tall, around and down, and back to the top. We'll do 2 more on whatever side you're on. And last one. And rest. Good, take a breath. And then our third one will be familiar if you did last week's video. We're gonna do those heel to toe rocks. So lifting up on your toes, back on your heels. Again, holding on to something for balance on this one is really helpful. If you wanted to work your balance a little bit, you could not hold on. But I like for this one, that little bit of balance support usually lets you lift onto that heel even a little bit more, which is nice for getting that extra range of motion at the ankle. So again, nice and smooth. Again, okay to be barefoot or in shoes for this one. Lifting up, feeling that calf engage, and then stretch. Calf engages and stretches. Good. All right, so you know the drill by now. We're going to go back to that first one with the field goal rotation of press. So hands are here, nice and even, and then rotate, press, field goal, rotate, press, and back down. Good. Thinking about the movement being at the shoulder, not as much at the elbow or the wrist. Rotating back up, thinking about straightening your elbows at the top. Working that overhead mobility is really good to do, especially as we age, but it's okay if your hands are a little further forward to start and then we work to get them in line with the ears. So again, if you feel you meet some resistance at the top, just work with where your range of motion is currently at. Last one here. And back down. Wonderful. Then we're going back to that standing one leg hip circle with a little bit of balance support, starting with that knee forward, nice and tall, bringing it out to the side and down, backwards, side to where you started. Out, back. Good. The hardest part is remembering to keep that foot up as your leg is behind you. That's really good for the glute and a great part of that hip mobility to work. Going around and down. And you'll notice with all these, we'll start to repeat them over the weeks. And hopefully you notice a little progress each time. That repetition is really what helps the body, both in strength training. We'll switch sides, stretching, cardio, anything, the more you repeat it, the better you get. So it's nice to have variety, but also good to have things that you're familiar with so you can see that progress and feel motivated, but also make that progress because you're practicing it over and over again. Hopefully this is feeling even a little bit smoother than the first time you did it. Back, side, and front, just going at your own pace. Remembering to breathe. This is our last one. And bring that leg down. Very good. Feel free to grab a sip of water. Take a deep breath before we go into our last round of heel rocks. Lifting the toes, lifting the heels. Again, you can even think about a little bit of alignment. Head over shoulders, over hips, over knees, over ankles, versus leaning too far forward or back. Another great way to think about posture, just stacking those joints. In most exercises, that's going to be the most joint-friendly way to do things. Like in a push-up, having shoulders over elbows, over wrists. So you can think about it here, from the top of your head down to your feet. And we've got one more. Good. And rest, we're going to bring it down to the floor now for a little circuit down here. And our first one is going to be some kneeling thoracic rotations. This is one of my all-time favorites for upper back. That thoracic spine, T-spine, is your upper back area. We're going to have one hand behind your head. I just have my knees a little bit apart, other hand on the ground, but make sure that your arms aren't too locked out or too bent. There's just a softening at the elbow. And then I'm going to take that elbow, bring it down towards my arm, and then rotate up towards the ceiling. Doesn't have to be too high. Again, just meet that mobility where it's at. Lifting up. And maybe timing your breath so that you exhale as you lift. Inhale as you come down. And we'll do one more on this side. And then you can stay right where you are. Just switch. Other hand goes behind the head. Lifting up. Tucking that elbow down. It doesn't have to touch the other arm, but it can. It's a nice reference point to have. Going just at your own speed. Keeping most of that movement around the shoulder blades in that upper back. Might feel the core engage a little bit on these. We'll do one more. Wonderful. I'm just looking at my cheat sheet for what's next. Our second one is going to be a plank push back. So for this one, we're on the hands and the toes, starting in a regular hand plank position. If this were a little bit too much, you could drop to the knees for a rest in between each of these, but we're pressing into downward dog. So make sure your surface is stable and then back to plank. So you can kind of adjust those hands, spread the fingers, pushing hips up and back, then back to the hands. Again, resting the knees if you ever need to in that plank position, hips up and back. Moving at your own speed. And if you ever need to rest and just hold that plank position on the knees, feel free to stay there. We won't do as many of these, but they're great for warming up the whole body, hamstrings, shoulder mobility. One more. Wonderful. And then you're going to reward yourself with a little stretch for our third one. We're going to do a lying glute stretch. So you'll start by crossing an ankle over your knee, and then just rest your head, your torso, and then reach through your leg on each side. And you can either pull the back of that hamstring gently towards you or grab onto the front of the shin. And remember, just to kind of meet your flexibility where it is, so don't tug too much. Feel free to just stay at that hamstring hold. And just take a big breath in and out. And then you can maybe see if you can pull it a teeny bit closer to you just to feel more of a stretch. And then release it and switch to that other side. Again, holding that hamstring or front of the shin, depending on where you are today in general. Some days you might really feel that stretch depending on what you've done. Hopefully maybe you've done a strength workout and you're feeling the legs a little bit. Some days it might feel like you've got a lot of flexibility there. And take a big breath in and out. And then release it. And we'll do these 3 one more time. Taking a moment to get back into that hands and knees position for our kneeling thoracic rotations. Again, knees slightly apart, fingers are spread, elbows are nice and straight but not too locked out, hand behind your head. Drop that elbow down, raise it up. I usually like to look up and kind of follow that movement of my arm as I'm doing this one versus just looking at the ground the whole time. Like with our windmill rotations, just helps to get that extra little bit of movement towards the top of the range of motion. We'll do one more this side. And then switch sides. This is a great one for all the desk workers or moms, anyone that kind of is in a curled forward position a lot. So usually most of us great to work that thoracic spine through this range of motion. Going right at your own speed. We'll do one more. And then take a breather. Second one coming up is that plank push back. So again, really strong position on the hands, fingers are spread, starting with shoulders over wrists. And then you're gonna push back into that downward dog position and come back to plank. We're not lingering in either position for too long. Pushing back, coming forward. This one also great for shoulder strength and core. Remember, you can drop to those knees for a moment if you need a little bit of a rest. We're going to do 2 more if you can stick with it. Wonderful. And then rest. Bring it back to that lying glute stretch. Coming onto the back. And choose whichever side you want to do first. Crossing that ankle over the knee. Reaching through the leg and grabbing onto the outside. And just gently tugging. This go around, if you want to even kind of play with just pushing that knee out a little bit as you pull the other knee towards you with your hand. Even just thinking about pushing that knee away from you a little bit, you might feel it a little bit more in the glute and the hip. Take one big breath in and exhale. And then switch sides. Do the same thing over here. So again, if you want pushing that knee away from you, you should feel that really opening up the hip. grab on and just kind of think about that knee pushing out as you pull. Take a big breath in and exhale. And then release that. And we're going to do just one time of our last exercise of the day. So you're almost there. We're going to be at seated, putting the soles of the feet together and then pulling them towards you so that you feel a little bit of stretch at the hip, but not too much. And then we're going to reach one side up and a little bit over, and then the other side up and a little bit over. So again, up, not fully collapsing to the sides. Still think about reaching upwards. So I hope you're feeling a little bit more limber after getting moving. Make sure to find us at HelloStrengthSeniors on Instagram. If you want to support these mobility sessions, there's also more information in the description box that'll take you over to that Instagram page, or share this with a friend if you think they might like to get a little morning movement in, or find the videos on this page anytime and do them on your own schedule. So we'll do one more on each side. And you've made it. So hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place on Tuesday, and have a great rest of your day.